And do you know the number of net losses so far for Labour?
At the time of us doing this interview, I think the net losses are about 50.
There are actually 125 net losses so far.
Well, the last time I looked, we had net losses of 100, but obviously this is a moving picture.
So we've just had the local elections in Britain, which is voting for mayors and council members, and the results are rolling in. Only about half of them are in so far, but Labour have been absolutely fucking waxed by the Conservatives. In fact, everyone has. So there were 4,851 seats up for grabs in 88 different councils, 32 in Scotland, 22 in Wales, and 34 in England. So far, 40 of them have reported their results, and it's just a bloodbath. It's an absolute bloodbath. So by about an hour before recording this video, the Conservatives had control of 13 different authorities and 1,000 seats. That's a net gain of 294 seats in 7 councils. Labour had control of 6 authorities and 623 seats, a net loss of 212 seats and 4 councils. The Lib Dems had 239 seats, a net loss of 36. UKIP had won just 1 seat, a net loss of 81. While the Greens had picked up 18, a net gain of 4. Plaid Cymru, meanwhile had won 136 seats, a net gain of 29. That is fucking staggering. I don't even know how to describe this. This is a huge collapse for Labour. I mean, they've been repeatedly failing across the board. They've been polling at the lowest they've ever polled in my lifetime, at least. And now they are just gone. I mean, the council elections, these are sort of like the on-the-ground control of the sort of domestic issues of each location, of each local council authority. So it's not necessarily important on a national scale, but it is indicative of the way the culture itself is going and what people are choosing. And they're choosing Conservative rather than Labour. And I honestly think that's entirely to do with the Labour Party themselves and not even their policies. That's the thing. I don't think people are voting on policies. I think people are voting against the sort of haughty, high-handed condescension that it just oozes from every single Labour Party member. And the weird ideological conviction that comes through. The kind of shiny-eyed, we'll do this for the people. Yeah, I don't think you will. The people are not on your side. The people, in fact, think you're awful, and they're voting for the party that should be their arch nemesis. But they're not. Suddenly, and this is the thing, right? This is not from any brilliant strategy from the Conservatives. This is because Labour are shit. It's because the Conservatives are the only party who understand that people in Britain want Brexit. They are full-throated, full bore. They're going at it with everything they have, and the public are rewarding them with their full support, or almost full support. An overwhelming majority the Conservatives are going to have in this next general election. And it's all because they just sat there and said, you know what, Brexit means Brexit. Fuck Europe. Well, I didn't say it quite like that, but you know what I mean. They are just committed to making the Brexit negotiations a success for Britain, and it is going to have to come at the expense of Europe, but you know what? Fuck them. They made their bed, they can get fucked in it, can't they? And the thing is, I know I'm right, because it's all areas that voted to leave the EU in which Labour is dying. For example, Derbyshire and Durham have yet to declare, but they will be closely watched as there are already signs that the party is losing ground in areas that voted to leave the EU. It lost ground in Lincolnshire, Cumbria and Warwickshire. Phil Johnson, the party's general election candidate in Nuneaton, lost his seat in the Warwickshire Council to the Conservatives. Why? Because people aren't voting on policy. They are voting on the overarching principle of the thing. They're looking at Labour and thinking, these are basically a bunch of fucking traitors. They know what the referendum result for Brexit was, and yet they spend all their time and energy whinging about it. And even when you have someone who is vaguely Eurosceptic, like Corbyn, he could at least I mean, he could just come out and say, you know what, right, the British people have spoken, that's it. For the people, we're going to back Brexit. But the thing is, he can't do that. He is actually being held hostage by his own party on this issue, because the average Labour voter is a middle-class Welsh vegan, and these people did not vote leave. They are in fact the annoying Ramonas you see wandering through the streets with signs saying, I hear you have to have signs at protests. They don't even give a shit really, but they are annoyed, emotionally pissed off that we're leaving the EU. They can't get over it, and they just won't come to terms with it. And so they're going to continue to lose until they realise they're being arrogant cocks to everyone else. You can't call people racist because they want the sovereignty of their nation back. You can't call them xenophobic or whatever fucking label you want. You just can't do that and expect them to vote for you. You have to understand this. Being condescending and arrogant towards people doesn't engender their loyalty in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it makes them resent you. It makes them despise you. And they will vote. And this is something you hear from Labour people all the time. You're voting against your own interests. Well, if their interests are, in fact, the sovereignty of the country, which it absolutely should be for anyone in the working class, because this is your only path to power over the richer people in the country. You cannot have any control over your country if you are not the one voting for the people who make the laws. And that's what the EU is. It is entirely beneficial to the rich. It is entirely detrimental to the poor. And you can look at any fucking nation in Europe to see it. Look at France, look at Britain, look at the pigs nations. They are all in the same boat. They want an elitist technocracy, and they're going to get it unless the working class fight back. And this is what you're seeing, and unbelievably, the vessel they have to use to do this is the fucking Conservative Party. It's stranger than fiction, isn't it? But there we go. Labour disappeared up its own arse. It became bourgeois and middle class and arrogant, and this is the price it pays.